Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary, this time Game 4 in the Best of 5 series between Root Catz spawning as the Yellow Zerg, and his opponent PPG Bubbles spawning as the Blue Protoss. Catz currently down in this series 2-1, so Bubbles just needs to win one more game, and he will be the Justin TV Invitational Champion. So both players making it through a very strong field, and in the first 3 games a lot of action. We see Bubbles has been trying to get a cannon contain on Catz, and he may even try it this game as well, with some mixed results. In the first game Catz was able to reverse it, get a proxy hatch up in Bubbles' base, and was able to foil that attempt, but in the second game Bubbles was able to get a nice defensive position with some cannons, and then eventually just macro up and bust down Catz on Steps of War. In that third game, some very interesting use of Dark Templars, and then morphing them into Archons a little bit earlier than we often see. So I'll be interested to see what Bubbles and Catz have for us in this fourth game. Again, Catz needs to win this one to force a Game 5. So it looks like Catz spawning in the northern position here. That's going to be farther rush distances by ground for both players, but closer by the air. So we may see one or both players go for that air play, as we see Bubbles getting down an early gateway, so not going for a forge first, which he had been doing in those first few games. And it looks like Catz may now be trying to get down a fast expansion, sending that drone down once he has about 200 minerals, and by the time he has 300, he'll be ready to throw that down. Looks like Catz has given away the position of his base with that Overlord, so Bubbles not yet sending out a scout, going for a 2-gate pressure, and this is what he did open up in the last game as well. He was able to get up a Cybernetics core and Chrono Boost out 2 Stalkers in the early going, so we'll see whether he goes for a Cybernetics core and the same sort of early pressure this game as well. Looks like Catz just now getting up his pool, so a little bit of a late pool getting gas as well. So maybe getting some speedlings out on this Metalopolis map, hoping to get some map control. You can get those towers, see any sort of Protoss army which is advancing. And we do have the Cybernetics core coming down, as well as the second gateway about to complete. Looks like the first gateway rallied directly into Catz's base, so Bubbles showing that he does mean business here. He will have units shortly coming out of these gateways, so the second gateway does come up. Cybernetics core about to complete as well. And it looks like around this timing he will have enough gas to start the Warp Gate tech, as well as 2 Stalkers. We see those Chrono Boosted out very quickly here, not quite ready for Warp Gate, as he is getting gas a little bit at a time here. So starting that Warp Gate, and we'll have 2 very fast Stalkers in the base of Catz. Catz just has 2 Queens on the way. He's got 4 Zerglings as well. He started Zergling speed, so pulling drones off the gas once he does have that 100 gas for speed. And something I have noticed in these games is Catz goes for a very late lair most of the time, so it pulls those drones off the gas in the early going there, and it looks like the Stalkers here will be intercepting a Overlord, so that Overlord having to retreat back, and Catz sees these Zerglings, or these Stalkers on the way, wants to try to get a decent surround with these Zerglings. He's got 2 Queens on the field as well, so going to try to do his best to push against these Stalkers. Again, these Stalkers very quick in the early going. The Zerglings on the creep can catch them, but if you dance around with the Stalkers, you can really hurt the Zergling count of your opponent, force him to create those Zerglings so he cannot drone up. But it looks like Bubbles actually pulling back here. This is something we saw in that second game, or in the third game, excuse me. He pushed out those early Stalkers, and then just pulled back and started getting up a few more gateways and going for that Dark Shrine. So he may be going for some higher tech here, puts those Stalkers on patrol, does not want any Overlords sneaking into the base and finding his tech path. Looks like he's adding on a robotics facility as well as another gateway. Catz doing his best to put those Zerglings to use, trying to poke up the ramp. Bubbles not letting him up the ramp though. He used those Zealots, met those Zerglings on the middle of the ramp, so I'm not sure the Zerglings were able to see much of anything there. It looks like they were able to see another, or the Cybernetics core. And again, the Overlord going to be pushed back by the Stalkers patrolling, and Catz going to keep Zerglings outside of his base here, as Warp Gate tech has finished. And it looks like another gateway being added, so not sure that Bubbles is going to be able to keep up production off these 4 Warp Gates, as well as that robotics. But just massing units at this point, those sentries warping in early on, going to allow him to save up a little bit of energy, get those all-important force fields, and Catz feeling like some pressure is going to be coming, throwing down a spine crawler, and it looks like he's getting a Roach Horn as well as Lair. So this is earlier Lair than he has been going for in these games. So I really like that play, changing it up a little bit. I felt like early Lair could have really helped him in the previous games. And now adding a number of Spine Crawlers, so we'll soon have 3 Spine Crawlers. He knows this is about to be pushed out, the Xel'Naga Tower, controlled by that Zergling. Bubbles taking down that Scout Zergling, and now pushing out here with a decent push. And it looks like he has a Warp Prism as well, so loading up a number of units, going to drop them on the high ground, do a little bit of an elevator push. If he can grab these other units and placing a pylon here, so we will be able to warp in units on the high ground of Catz's base here. Now Catz trying to position to defend against this. If we check the army tab, it is 1575 to 650. So Catz really needs to get some army on the way. 3 Roaches and a number of Zerglings trying to reposition those Spine Crawlers. The probe lifted up here, placing a pylon right in the base of Catz, placing down those force fields. Going to try to prevent the Roaches and the Queens from doing too much damage, and really keeping those Roaches at bay. Queen, a nice transfuse there, a second transfuse on that Queen so it will not go down. And finally, using up all the energy right before it died. Smart move by Catz. So PPG Bubble is going to try to take down the Queen count of Catz at this point. Catz doing his best to rally more and more troops. He's got 5 Roaches on the way. He's got this burrowed Spine Crawler as well. But Bubbles has a nice strong position in the Zerg base here, and he's going to be using these pylons to warp in more and more units. I believe the Warp Prism has found a new home, so it looks like we have some double pressure coming in here in both the main and the natural. So a very strong position by Bubbles. He's going to try to take down that Spine Crawler before it can get burrowed. Again, taking 10 seconds is quite a long time. Focusing down that last Queen. See a few more Queens, no, not on the way for Catz. So Catz can have difficulty macroing up here, but at this point he's got a lot of Roaches. Without Blink, these Stalkers are going to be really in trouble. And it looks like an Overseer as well, just in case there are any DTs. So Catz learning his lesson, unlike last time, and fending off the pressure from Bubbles. And now if we check the army tab, it is 1400, now 1600 to 575. And Bubbles has no real second step here, doesn't have much of an army. Going to have to pull back and try to defend against a counter push coming from Catz. Looks like Bubbles was able to save a few of those units in that Warp Prism, but again, that Army tab counts that Warp Prism, the 200 minerals, so Bubbles does not have much. Placing down a Nexus, but I do not believe he's going to be able to defend this. Catz moving in here with these Speedlings at this point. He's got those slow Roaches on the way, Roach speed about to complete, and the pylon does go down, so no more units going to be warped into the base of Catz. And now working on that Nexus, I'm not sure that Nexus is going to be able to be kept up here. Bubbles does not have much, having to pull off a number of probes, feeling like some pressure is coming. He does have an Immortal, going to be quite good against those Roaches, and now canceling that expansion. So being bottled up here in his base, that attack not working, and now he's going to have to defend here. He does have sentries, so he can force field this ramp, but the Overseer going to give sight on the high ground to these Roaches, so the Roaches will be able to take down these Stalkers, and 2 great Contaminates here on these Warp Gates, going to prevent more and more units from coming out by Bubbles. And again, the Overseer providing that sight for the Roaches. Some nice force fields here are going to prevent the Roaches from shooting up top. And the Contaminate about to wear off. Bubbles has to warp in more and more units. He does have a second Immortal on the way, so hoping to fend off these Roaches. 2 Immortals can do a lot of damage against those armored Roaches. Looks like we have a Spire about halfway complete for Catz. So doing a little bit of a tech switch from Roaches over to Spire. We'll see how that works for him. See, Bubbles mostly focusing on Immortals at this point. Actually doesn't have much coming. Just maybe saving up for an expansion. And now it looks like he's doing another round of warp-ins. So Catz pulling back here, not really sure why he didn't continue to assault the front base of PPG Bubbles, but it looks like that Spire is about to complete. Another Immortal on the way for Bubbles, so we'll soon have 3, but they're going to do no good against whatever comes out of that Spire. It looks like 3 Mutalisks on the way for Catz. If we check the income tab, it is 39 Harvesters to 28. So Catz does have quite the advantage here. Bubbles did have to cancel that natural and really has no second step. He's going to have to push out, perhaps trying to take down Catz with a strong push here. And it looks like Catz coming in with these Roaches. Nice force fields going down, going to prevent the movement of those Roaches. Again, Roach speed has completed. And if we check the the Mutalisks, they are rallied into the middle of Catz's base here, so hoping to do a little bit of damage economically to Bubbles. Bubbles has no cannons up at this point, so let's check the unit counting station. 28 harvesters for Bubbles. We see some double action here, so I'll show you the battle between the two armies here, trusting that those Mutalisks will be doing their job on those probes. It looks like he's down to 17 probes, so 11 probes going down by those Mutalisks, and Bubbles with no expansion up yet has basically the wrong tech with those Immortals and gives the GG. Wow, so Bubbles had that very strong push into Catz's base, and I really like that timing. He had the pylon down below. He was able to lift up some units into Catz's base. I'm not really sure how Catz was able to defend against that. He lost both of his queens. He did get those spine crawlers up into position to defend there, and then he was able to rally a ton of roaches and zerglings, eventually able to take down PBG Bubbles' force. Bubbles pulled back, and at that point just had to play on the defensive, had to cancel that expansion, which was huge. At this point, once the Mutas did come in, taking down his initial economy, he really had no second step, like I've said a few times, and even though he had a strong ground army, he was just not able to take on the Mutalisks. So Catz with a good defense there, able to take this game 4, so it will force a game 5, so a final game in this series coming down to the last one between these two very strong players. I'll go ahead and cast game 5 for you now. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching this one. Take care.